Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to our latest episode of the Movie Crusaders Chat About. My name is Sean Wasserkrug. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. And today, we're going to be talking about the Marvel MCU, Phase 4 so far. For everyone who's been watching the channel, Brian and I are relatively, for the most part, very positive MCU fans. We like most of everything on that, and even the things that we don't like, we're passionate about it, but we, for the most part, still probably like about 95% of what we've seen. And the thing is that especially after Miss Marvel, now that's ended, we're kind of in, I don't want to say a lull, but we have a breather. We have a break now between the next thing, which I think is She-Hulk, which is next month. Is it August?
I don't know if I had an exact date.
I want to say it's August or September.
August 17th.
August 17th. So we're about a month out from the next MCU thing, and we know Comic-Con's this upcoming week, so I know there's going to be a lot of stuff that's probably going to be updated before. We probably should have shot this later, but we said, screw it, we're going to talk about it right now.
It's more fun to do predictions and things, you know?
Exactly. And it's one of those things where Phase 4 has been getting a lot of heat from people right now with there's no direction and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, me personally, it doesn't need to have direction right now, in my opinion. I don't think it does. Before I go too far into a thing here, let's go ahead and go to Brian real quick. Brian, what are your general quick thoughts of Phase 4 so far?
Well, I think that Phase 4's got two things that are, well, kind of working for and against it. One is that you're coming off of Infinity War and Endgame, which is like the ultimate culmination of the MCU.
Yeah.
And I remember I saw somebody describe it online the other day as Marvel Phase 4 is like after you've finished a whole video game and then you go back and play the side quests. You know, it just a lot of just compared to the big finale, it seems inconsequential largely. And I think that part of the problem is, yes, it's hard to tell where they're going with it, because with the Avengers, you knew all these characters as members of the Avengers team. They eventually come together, and then their further adventures together. This Phase 4 is a lot of kind of random characters who, maybe have never even been part of a team together. So it's like you don't know where they're going with it. You're not quite sure where it's going. The other thing is with Disney Plus, which I think the Disney Plus existing and having these shows, these limited series, or in some cases apparently ongoing series, is a good thing, because these characters who wouldn't get their own movies, you can still tell a story about, whether it be a Hawkeye or, even like WandaVision wouldn't be a movie, but you can get it in a series and you can get a little bit more about these characters that you do enjoy. But at the same time, with the movies and the TV, I think that it feels like they're really kind of diluting, it's like now in Phase 4, you have like 2 to 3 times as much characters and content as there have been any other phase of the MCU. And so it just seems like there's so much, and since we don't know how they're going to come together, if they're even all going to come together, then it's while they're all enjoyable shows, I think there's just not that cohesive feeling that the previous phases have had. I think that's where people are feeling a little something different.
Yeah, see, for me, and I agree, it's like everything in Marvel's Phase 1 through 3, which I hate these phase things. It's like, because like end of the phases used to be Avengers. The Avengers movie was the end of that phase, and so on and so forth. But Phase 3 did not end with Endgame. Phase 3 ended with No Way Home, or not No Way Home, Far From Home, which was like that. It should have just ended at Endgame. Like, you shouldn't have done, oh yeah, and here's another Spider-Man movie. That should have been the start of Phase 4. But knowing that we potentially may or may not have an Avengers movie, or at least an Avengers movie that we know of, I think you either need to kind of drop the whole phase crap, or have a definitive, this is the end of Phase 4, now we're going to Phase 5. And honestly, if I was going off of how to break this shit up, now granted, like I said, we don't know where we're going with everything, Spider-Man No Way Home probably should have been the end of Phase 4, where everything's like, here's all the stuff, and then boom, multiverse has begun, here we go. And then you also had the Loki thing ending with end of Loki, and it's like, okay, here's kind of where the game plan potentially is going. And yeah, with the first, was it 25 films, if we're counting, I think, Endgame.
Something like that.
What's that?
I said something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yes, it did. Like, a lot of people tend to forget that the first, like, 2 phases, there was no structure. It was, here's Iron Man movies, here's Thor movies, here's Captain America movies. Eventually, they'll compile up to an Avengers film, and then they'll go off and do their own things. It wasn't until Age of Ultron, which me and Brian detest, is that everyone hates on that film, but that film literally set up everything. Age of Ultron, and I guess technically Guardians 1, set up the Infinity Stone saga. If it wasn't for those 2 films, it was very kind of all over the place as well. It's just that they didn't have the TV series to kind of do more with. And like you're saying here with the movies, with Disney Plus and the TV series, is we're getting more time with these characters that, like how Wanda and Falcon were in phase 1 through 3, where like, oh, they're there, but they're not, like, they're a part of the team, but they're not a focal point. They're like the backup players. They're not like, they're there. They'll have their little quips. They'll have their little things. But ultimately, you're focusing on Cap, Iron Man, Thor. The main 5 kind of thing. And even to an extent, Black Widow and Hawkeye were like, they're main characters, but they're not. They're like B compared to the A group. And now with these series, with like WandaVision, Loki, we're actually now fleshing out those characters. And how you were saying how it's kind of like a video game with side quests. I look at it as kind of like phase 1 through 3 was an entire series. Like, let's say Supernatural had 15 seasons. That was an entire series. Phase 4 is now, here is the spinoff.
Let's make a spinoff because the main stars don't want to do the show anymore, but we still have these side characters.
But here's some stars from the previous films, such as Thor and Loki, and then we're going to bring in the minor characters that were there for everything in that first series, but we're going to give them bigger roles now, such as Wanda and Falcon and Bucky and all them, and they're going to be the stars. But we're going to also bring in more characters and make it a bigger world, because it's not just stuck on, and like right now what they're doing with Supernatural, and I'm using Supernatural because it was 15 years long. You had Sam and Dean, and then you had everyone around them. It's like, well, what if Sam and Dean are gone? Let's continue the world of Supernatural, but we're going to continue it with all these characters that we do love, but they're not Sam and Dean. And that's what's going on with phase 4 right now. It's like, cool, granted, Black Panther was still supposed to be around. I don't think anyone was, you can't control that shit. But it's like, Ruffalo's there, but he don't want to be the big focal point anymore. Thor's still Thor, and Loki's still...
Plus, they've ruined Hulk, but don't get me started on that.
I'm not yet. Not yet, anyway. But let's start... And in this case, let's get younger with this as well.
Yeah, just one more thing going off what you were saying is I think that 2 things that you said I agree with. The one, I think they need to get rid of the phase thing, because with the phase thing, everyone expects like, okay, we're working towards this big culmination of something, which, okay, that first series did. But now it's like in the Marvel Comics, actual comic books, everyone just had their ongoing series. And then once in a while, they do this big, crossover event. But it was never like, okay, every 2 years, we're going to have a crossover event. But now people aren't just watching these stories as stories. They're all going, well, where's this going? How's this going to tie in with everything else? What's this going to lead to? Instead of just enjoying the stories by themselves. So I agree with you that I think the phase thing needs to stop. And the other thing is, I as far as the characters, I feel like in phase 4, I think they're kind of scraping the barrel for characters. I mean, some of them are well-known characters, but they aren't as popular. It's like they've gotten all their big ones out of the way that they own so far. And now, obviously, X-Men's coming in eventually at some point. Fantastic Four. But I mean, you've used your Hulk, your Spider-Man, you've used all your major Avengers, with Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, all that kind of stuff. So now you're digging out Moon Knight and Ms. Marvel and Shang-Chi, and these are characters that, the movies might be entertaining, but they are never going to be like the big marquee character.
Yeah. When we get to an inevitable, let's call it a Thanos level event, which will we get to maybe with Doctor Doom and something, maybe we'll get something close to that again, but Doctor Doom was never up to the level what Thanos was. Are we expecting Shang-Chi, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel? Are we expecting these characters?
Well, that's just it. If they have a big culmination, a big, like a culmination crossover event, whatever you want to call it, and these are your main characters, I think that movie is not going to be nearly as big as any of the previous ones. Now, if they wait for the X-Men, Fantastic Four, that kind of thing, yeah. But if they try to make this is your group, and it's kind of like, I think a lot of people are going to be like,
most of these, and we made this joke. I can't remember what episode it was. We made this joke. It's like, oh, every young character is like, oh, Young Avengers, Young Avengers, Young Avengers. I'm like, yes, we know. Young Avengers is going to be a thing. You got Kate Bishop, who we both loved as a character in Hawkeye. And then you're like, okay, Miss Marvel. And and here's this person. Oh, and here's this person. Oh, and here's this person. Like, okay, cool. So you're making Young Avengers. That's fine. But when it kind of comes down to a potential Thanos level event, right now, those are the leaders. Probably with Falcon and well, I guess Captain America now, and Bucky being, I guess, the leaders of the Avengers, because with I guess Doctor Strange, because Thor, where Thor: Love and Thunder ended, spoiler warnings for obviously for Thor: Love and Thunder, even though it's been out for a couple.
Maybe watch this and see Thor.
Thor's going to be in Papa Thor, elsewhere. I don't think he really gives a shit about what's going on with them, and then. Like, you're not going to be looking at Miss Marvel and and all these younger characters being the Iron Man, Captain America characters. It's just not going to happen. Right now,
if they wanted to make a Disney Plus show or something with Young Avengers, fine, go for it. But if they try to make this group of Young Avengers like a major part of the MCU at this point, I think they're going to
see, and that was the problem that they tried to do with it in the first phases, is that they did the Netflix shows. You had Daredevil, you had Iron Fist, you had Jessica Jones, you had Luke Cage. I enjoyed those shows. Maybe not so much Iron Fist, but I enjoyed those shows. But they constantly kept trying to keep them at an arm's length. Like, yeah, they're in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too, to a point, because like Ghost Rider was there, but they never brought Ghost Rider to the movies. It's like, yes, they're in the same world, but they're not a part of them. But it's like, but they are. But when it came to a Thanos level event,
but then now they completely decanonized them, but then now they're kind of cherry picking.
But now they're kind of bringing them back in. But it was like on a movie level event, they're like, oh no, we're not going to bring them into this. They're too small. They're too small time.
They're too mortal.
I was like, they're what?
Most of them are too mortal.
Yeah, they're too mortal. They'll die right away. But it's like, well, I mean, how's that different from the Wakandas or the Wakandians or most of the sorcerers from Doctor Strange? They're all, for the most part, very, very mortal to a point. Why not have Daredevil with, Ant-Man and Wasp and all these kind of characters? And now, like I said, they're bringing them back around, especially Daredevil and Kingpin after Hawkeye and Spider-Man. And now eventually Echo is going to have both of them in it. But that was one of those things where it's like they were great characters. Oh, yeah, Punisher. I forgot about Punisher. Punisher was fantastic. But they are, yeah, they're more mortal, like Kate Bishop and Hawkeye and Black Widow, that they'll be there, but they're not going to be the main heroes to these stories. You need these bigger than life characters, which Tony technically, yes, was mortal, but he had the suit, so he was fine. But it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of this stuff, while I enjoyed most of all of it, we're in a holding pattern till X-Men and Fantastic Four can come through. And Miss Marvel, the end of Miss Marvel, did kind of start to set up the bread pieces for X-Men. You had the DODC, who are against anyone who's different, aka mutants, the way they treat Miss Marvel by the end of that series. And they announced the mutant gene. And of course, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness does bring in Xavier, not our Xavier, but it will be an Xavier to a point. So the breadcrumbs are starting for the X-Men. And I feel like all these characters, like the Moon Knights, the She-Hulk when she eventually pops in, all of these characters are going to take a back seat because X-Men is X-Men. And you're not going to make the X-Men in the back seat. Like, X-Men is going to be what sells, especially once you throw the MCU thing on it. You can have all these characters there. Like Captain Marvel, granted, we've shit on Captain Marvel quite a bit in terms of her movie and stuff like that, but they really have not utilized her. Barely at all. Now, granted, the Marvels, when that comes out, maybe they'll utilize her a lot better there, but for being this, like, godlike character where she's unstoppable, they've really not utilized.
Well, I think that's the problem, is they made her, you make someone too powerful, they become almost boring. That's always been
Superman.
That's always been the problem with Superman, because I mean, Superman, if you think of all the heroes, like, he's the one hero who, like, is like, they just gave him everything. Let's give him flight. You know what? He can have heat vision. Oh, he's invulnerable. Oh, he can do this. He can do that. It's like, He's super fast. So basically, you've negated any other superhero like Flash or something.
And that was the problem with Superman for the longest time, is that outside of kryptonite, which if you can
so
get
all of a
it,
sudden,
great.
kryptonite was
But
like the
then they
most
started
common
adding,
substance in the world. All of a sudden,
yeah, they started adding like different levels of kryptonite. Oh, the red kryptonite makes him evil. The blue one takes his powers away. The green, I'm blanking on.
and for a planet that's like galaxies away, a lot of it sure landed on Earth. That's all.
Exactly, you're sure finding a lot of kryptonite all of a sudden on Earth. But it's like if you start making them too powerful, then you have to start finding ways to bring stuff in that like, oh, well, this hurts them. It's like, well, no, it didn't hurt them back here.
In Ms. Marvel, I think A, she's like, I think she's too powerful. B, I think Brie Larson is very bland in the role.
I think she's fine. I think it's
now you're going to make a movie and team her up with the worst character off Disney Plus show, and it's just like it's going to be that movie's going to have to really impress me to change my mind on this.
I think did you ever finally watch the finale?
I did.
You did finally watch the finale. I thought the finale was actually really well done. Now, Brian and I are not defenders of Ms. Marvel. We have both not enjoyed the series pretty much at all. There are good elements in Ms. Marvel.
Yes.
I think the performances for everybody was really, really solid. I don't dislike the performances. I think oh god, is it how do you say Ms. Marvel's real name? The actress?
Oh, I have no idea.
I'm blanking on her. I don't have her pulled up. I think she did a great job. She's a little too Kate Bishop.
I think she was fine. I just think the show, and not just because of her age, I think the show felt like a CW superhero show or like an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. level show. It did not feel like an MCU show.
It did, and the problem with it is, granted, I know you and I didn't enjoy it, but only leaving this at 6 episodes, I think greatly hindered the show, because you knew how many episodes there were. And so when you got to episode like 4 and 5, you're like, the villains are kind of already gone. Who the fuck are the villains in this story? What is this? Is this story just about her developing her powers? Which, if it is, fine. That's okay. Which inevitably is what it ended up being. And I think the finale did a good job of establishing her family and her embracing the powers. Figuring out, I do think she kind of went Rey Skywalker a little bit, and like went from like a 1 to like a 10 on knowing how to do her powers in a blink of an eye. Because also she could like do everything in the finale. Like, when the fuck did she learn how to do 90% of this shit? But where we left it off as, with the whole like Carol Danvers swap, did it leave me intrigued to see what Marvel's is going to be? Absolutely. And that's the problem with Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel right now, is they just keep going, oh, she's off dealing with other universe stuff. And it's like, okay, that's fine for little bits here and there, like why she's not here. But it's like, when you have her pop in like on Infinity War and Endgame, she's like, well, I'm busy doing this. It's like, are you not from Earth? Like, this should be priority number 1 is Earth. Like, you're off fighting all this. Half the planet's just got snapped. Why weren't you in Infinity War? Why weren't you there to stop Thanos the first time? Which you're defending the universe. That's great. That's cool. But why weren't you there for that? It's because I don't think they know how to handle Captain Marvel. Because yes, she is too strong. She could have shown up in Infinity War when Thanos didn't have all the rings or stones, and probably could have stopped it, because you made her too strong. You made her too powerful. And then when she did show up in Endgame, she for the most part pretty much handled everything. Now, granted, you had to have Tony, kind of.
I will say, in her defense, I don't think that she maybe knew everything was going on with Thanos and all this stuff. She was not part of the event. The only person in communication with her was
That's true.
And as soon as he was going on, he paged her.
But then how does she know all the other stuff that's happening in the universe then? She constantly is around the universe, going and saving everything in the universe. Who's contacting her there? Is it
I don't know. She has a network. I don't know.
But that's the thing, is we're not being shown that. We're not seeing that stuff. It's just her going, I have to go off planet. I have other shit to deal with. And it's like, you need to show this shit so you can explain why she does. And maybe in Marvels they'll do that.
In Marvels they will. And my thing is that with the TV shows, like with Ms. Marvel, even you said how you need more time. I feel like I would actually enjoy these stories more if they weren't TV shows. I think if they want to put them Disney Plus instead of theatrical, but still do a 2.5 hour movie, I think I would enjoy this and Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki and all these things more if it was like a 2.5 hour movie. I think the series, it's like stretched out and all this side stories you don't care about. And
I agree that, like, in terms of the shows, I think Falcon Winter Soldier, that could have been a movie. I think that one could have been a 2.5 hour film. I think it would have done, which I liked Falcon Winter Soldier. It's actually one of my favorite ones. I actually really liked the building of Bucky and wow, why do I keep blinking on Falcon's real name?
Sam,
thank you, Sam Wilson. I actually liked the build of Bucky and Sam's characters in that. It was more the villains that you really couldn't get behind, or the basically I'm blanking on what they're.
Well, and it spent the entire series just hitting you over the head with the social commentary. Just
Well,
okay, we get it.
That's the way the world is now. You can't attack the show for that when that's that for 90% of what the MCU is nowadays. Miss Marvel is the same way, which you can either huff and puff at it, and be like, hey, that's the way the world is, and 90% of a lot of movies and shows out there are doing the exact same thing. But because it's the MCU, people are turning their nose up at it, and it's like, hey, no, like 90 other shows that you guys probably watch and enjoy are doing the exact same thing. And you guys aren't bitching about that, or if you are, you're not just being that vocally loud about it. So you can't attack the MCU for basically trying to keep up with times and trying to keep things the way it is. But like Loki was the first show where it's like we're gonna set the fucking path for what things are gonna go. Now, did it hit every way? No, it did not. I think a lot of people are putting Loki on too high of a fucking pedestal, which like I said, I enjoyed Loki. And I was really excited about where we're going to go with this whole Kang thing, Kang the Conqueror. But we also haven't heard jack shit since Loki ended.
Well, this is the problem with Loki. And I like Kang. And Jonathan Majors did a great job. I liked his take on Kang too. I thought it was perfect. And we're going to see him again in Quantumania, Ant-Man and Wasp. So there'll be something with that. I think the problem with Loki is that we knew the whole multiverse thing was coming, because Doctor Strange. But now, and so they added this thing with Loki with his alternate timelines, and there's a whole lot of confusion as to what's alternate timelines versus what is parallel dimensions. And there's so many different things going on at once that I think it's like, well, wait, do these have anything to do with each other? No, are these connected?
That
no,
that is the big problem right now, because Loki is this one thing, and the rest of the MCU is doing this other thing.
Yeah, and
eventually they're gonna have to converge, and they're gonna have to make sense, because what Loki's thing is not the multiverse. That is parallel universes. That's alternate timelines. That's not Earth 616, Earth 8, Earth 12.
Well, that's what I wonder, because I think that a lot of people predicted that, with Doctor Strange in the multiverse is going to open up this big thing, and it's going to really open the doors to Phase 4 and where they're going with it. And it really didn't. It kind of tied a bow on the multiverse thing. It was like, here's our one-off movie, and okay, I think we're pretty much done with multiverse. Well, I mean, honestly, a little bit of Spider-Man, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Unless they continue more with Spider-Man, which I don't see that happening. I think Spider-Man's going to be very more smaller central focus.
Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. At least the next movie, I'm pretty sure will be. So then with Loki, I have to wonder if between season 2 and Quantumania, if they're going to tie an end to that whole thing now as well. So that's not going to be an ongoing thing either. Yeah,
because even with Thor: Love and Thunder had nothing to do with multiverse thing. That was a strict Thor story.
Yep.
And like I said, by the end of that, you kind of you granted we're cool with seeing another Thor film, but they could have
Thor movies. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. And I like I said, the whole gods storyline at the end with Hercules and Zeus. I'm totally for watching a Thor movie where he's having to go against Zeus and the gods.
They missed an opportunity.
That has nothing to do with what everything else is going on. That's a separate path.
And if they wanted to crossover, this last movie would have been their chance, because they could have brought in Moon Knight and Black Panther, although somebody else from Black Panther, because they brought the gods. Because they've dealt with the gods there. So if you had the God Butcher like going after their gods too, they could have brought them into that movie. But
you could have Khonshu, you could have had the other gods all there, or at least a remnant of it showing, instead of having a head.
And all three of them have kind of shown their version of the afterlife.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of sort of like a head with feet, you could have said, "Oh, there's Khonshu. Oh, there's blinking on what the other gods that were using the avatars. You could have had all them there, and you could have just like name dropped them. Yeah. Just show, hey, they're all connected, but you didn't do that with Thor: Love and Thunder. And like I said, with the rest of the shows, I think Wanda was a beautiful attachment to Phase 3, where you're like, hey, Wanda is a very important character, but we haven't really given her time. We haven't really given Elizabeth Olsen the time to grow as the character, and even Paul Bettany as Vision to another point, because White Vision's still out there somewhere. Will we see White Vision anymore? Who knows? But I thought that WandaVision, granted, like the first 4 episodes when you really didn't know what the fuck was going on, it was just, hey, here's a sitcom-y, jokey thing. But as soon as you locked in to what the show was.
See, that's one that had to be a TV show, because I think they wanted you to be
you
like,
had
what
to.
the fuck is going on? Just like the characters in the show were. And
And
so
you know what?
now
Week to
it
week,
comes together and you know where it's going. That had to be a series.
And week to week, it worked because you wanted to come back and go, I got to see what the hell's going on. And then once you find out, you're like, oh, shit. And then at the end of the series, like I said, I cried. I thought that she knocked it out of the park, which is why her stuff and her turn in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness made sense to me. And we know she's not dead because we saw the little red poof thing happen when the mountain was coming down. So we know she's still around. We may not see her for a little while, but we know.
Or at least they left the door open in case they decide to use her again.
Exactly, which I think they still will. Like I said, Falcon Winter Soldier, that was all basically just setting up Sam to be Captain America and Bucky, which that's fine. I'm cool.
I have a big problem with Sam as Captain America, and it has
you just
nothing
don't like
to do
the
with
outfit. You don't like the outfit.
The outfit's ugly. The outfit's ugly as hell.
I actually like the outfit.
My problem with Sam as Captain America is that Captain America was not just, oh, I have the shield and I'm patriotic. Captain America had fucking super serum, made him super strong. It made him like it was much harder to hurt him. Just the fact he could throw the shield with so much more strength, things like that. Falcon's just a dude who happens to be holding the shield. So he can get his ass kicked.
He did have his Rocky montage moment where he got himself
ready. He's not have super strength. His ass kicked. That's why Bucky would have been a better choice. And I don't care about it's not a racial thing, nothing like that. I'm sure I'll get accused by somebody.
There should have been a moment.
It's because he has the super serum and he has that same strength and stuff.
There should have been a moment where Falcon or Sam got injected with the serum. Whether it be accidentally or whether it be because he had to do it in order to fight
on the boys.
Like on the boys, exactly. And then that helped him get his Captain America, power set basically in there. Because yes, Sam is a great character. Sam is will probably be a great Captain America. He probably will, but he's not going to have the speed. He's not going to have the strength, and basically also the durability of taking the beatings that Captain America had because of the serum. Whereas Bucky will, because Bucky had that serum in him. So we'll see how that goes when they eventually make Captain America 4. Shang-Chi, I actually really love Shang-Chi. You and I think both really like that movie. But it also felt like a one-off film, much like Black Widow. I think and that's the thing with Black Widow. Not that I just want to completely abandon Shang-Chi, but Black Widow's whole film was, yes, we fucked up and we didn't give ScarJo her own movie, so let's give her a flashback movie. But all it was to set up Yelena, so that way she could be ready for Young Avengers and then bringing her into Hawkeye. And because, at the end of the day, that's basically what that episode was. It was. Well,
that's the other thing is because Black Widow is, it's really just like, okay, ScarJo, fine, here's your movie. But like you said, it was a fine film. So they used it to introduce essentially a new Black Widow in Yelena, who I really like the character. I really like the actress. I think she's good. I'd like to see more of her. But then, of course, they tie it off with this whole thing where they're trying to use her with this, what is it, the Countess or whatever she's called?
Yeah, and then that's supposed to make like the Dark Avengers.
With Julia Louis-Dreyfus, which is a whole nother thread. It's like that's I think why people think this is so unfocused, because there's like 12 different things going on.
That's true.
And if like each thing was going to be its own thing, if Yelena was going to live in her universe and like future movies or TV shows involving her would involve this storyline and this one, that'd be fine. But MCU has created this expectation of, it's all going to come together, and people are like, where are you going?
Yeah, I think that's where, and you and I are more open to that. We're not.
I'm fine with separate stories. I just want them to say these are just going to be their own thing, and that's fine.
We're not, and you know what? They could fucking come out during Comic-Con, just say, you guys need to get off of this. Like, I granted, we know we set you up for this for the past 14 years by doing it this way, but you guys need to learn that they're just going to go off and do their own things. Young Avengers is going to have their own thing. Dark Avengers is going to have their own thing. They're all they might cross at some point.
Because I don't care how good the next thing is, if it's Secret Wars or whatever. I don't care how good their next thing is. It's the headline will always be, it's not as good as Endgame.
Which it's not.
You can't. You've already
going to top that. Like,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You're never going to get to that level. So just like do something different now.
Just let it. And that's the thing, is that they are trying to do something different, but no one wants to let them.
The problem is they're trying to do 12 different things. Yeah.
True. They're trying to figure out what works the best, and what eventually what's going to happen is when they do find the one that works best, they're going to start abandoning or just forcing everything in. The one thing that did not work, and they should have just left off the board completely, is the fucking Eternals. Because that is one thing, once again, and we made this argument when we talked about Eternals, throwing in Celestials and these big gods, and basically it makes everything that's happening in all these films inconsequential. Thanos, inconsequential. Everything happening right now with the multiverses, I guess,
sorry,
also
but
inconsequential.
There was a giant fucking celestial coming out from inside the Earth, basically cracking the Earth in half, and most of the Earth is unaware.
And that's the thing. Not a single fucking time has it been brought up since. No one's talked about it.
You can make a stinker, but I did not like Eternals at all.
I did not like it at all. It's one of the worst ones in my opinion.
You can have a stinker, fine. MCU's they've bought themselves a stinker. That's fine.
Yes.
But the fact is, when it's something that would so change the entire universe,
it's a world-changing event.
Yeah, and like you said, it makes and because they're these all-powerful gods and things, it just makes everything else seem so trivial.
It's literally at the end of the fucking film had a god basically part the clouds and fucking grab, like, was it 3 people and take them. And it'd be one thing if, like, humans couldn't see it. But no, fucking they saw it. Humans saw that thing grab them and pull them from the world. So it's one of those things where it's like, it'd be one thing if it was like, or even with Moon Knight, where you had the Khonshu and the other god fighting up there like in a Godzilla battle, which, granted, that was in the desert, wasn't it? No, that was in a town. That wasn't a town, wasn't it? Yeah, So it's like, that's out there. Now, granted, we haven't had anything happen pre-Moon or post-Moon Knight except for Doctor Strange, Thor, Miss Marvel, but that they were kind of their own separate things. But you're doing these really, really big things, but we're not getting connective tissue. Now, granted, it could be too soon because, like I said, Thor wasn't on Earth.
And these could all be happening concurrently for all we know, too.
Exactly. It could all be happening at the same time. That is the other thing right now that we're having issues with in Phase 4, is that we're not really sure the fucking timeline right now. Everything's kind of in limbo because we did figure out that Spider-Man No Way Home and Hawkeye were happening at the same time. Because they both, and the only reason we know that is because of the fucking Captain Rogers musical poster. That's the only reason that we know that they happened around the same time. But everything else, we don't know when Shang-Chi happened. We don't know when Eternals has happened. We don't know when Doctor Strange was obviously after Spider-Man. We know that much. But Falcon, Winter Soldier, Loki, all that stuff, we have no idea because they haven't popped up elsewhere yet. So could they all congruently be happening at the same time? We don't know. But it's weird because we're now 4 years into Phase 4, right? 4 years, yeah. Because 2018 was Endgame, and granted we could say 2009 because COVID. I don't think we didn't have anything for COVID, right? We had no Marvel.
No, we had nothing in 2020.
So granted, we're 3 years. We're 3 years into Marvel Phase 4. We don't know the timeline for any of this shit. They're being really, really smart now, not to say years, because they've learned that people pay attention.
Well, because then they did that thing with the blip where we're now they're 5 years ahead of us.
Exactly, and so you got all this weird stuff. And that's why, like, during Thor, I liked that one little moment, which very few people picked up on when Jane. I almost said Jan. I was like, that's not right. When Jane was talking to Thor, she's like, how long has it been? Like 3-4 years? And he's like, 8 years, blah, 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 blah. Which meant that she did get snapped. Because to her, it's that's much time. But for Thor, he did add like 5 years to whatever she said. Because
granted, he knew it to the letter, and that was the point of him, like, knowing
I get that.
Wrong.
But
it was a 5-year difference, yes.
The 5-year difference meant that she did get snapped at that point. So that was one of those little things where he's like, I picked up on that. I picked up on that. For him, it's been 8 years. For her, it's only been like 3. But it's like one of those things where Eternals just came in, and it'd be one thing if Eternals started off the phase, because like this is the way it's going now, and then everything else is kind of, which you and I both don't want that. I saw your face.
I would have the most respect for Kevin. The most respect I could ever have is if Kevin Feige came out and said, you know what, Eternals didn't work. pretend that didn't happen.
Basically, do the Inhumans thing.
They'll never
but then
do
the
that.
Inhumans back.
They'll never do that. But I wish he would, because at this point, it's like, where can you go with that?
Exactly, because I mean, it's just like with like the whole like Netflix series where they were like, oh, those didn't happen, but now they're starting to bring them back in. It's like, okay, are we supposed to not pretend that the Defenders aren't a thing anymore? Because the Defenders had a show. What about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Are we supposed to pretend Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't a thing anymore? Because
Kevin Feige always kind of said that didn't really exist in his universe, but
I mean, Coulson's Coulson,
and
Lady Sif was in there, and Samuel Jackson.
But I mean, you can write that off as like Deadpool. It's like, it's kind of in our world it is, but in their world,
that's the other thing. Deadpool, he will be popping in.
Yep.
So how's that going to go through? Like, how's that going to work? We don't know yet. But there's a spider web of things. Whereas with the previous phases, it started off kind of spider web, but then they all just kind of congruently went through here, and then you have like a little one here, but then it eventually would connect back into the line, and everything kind of focused into the one lane. By the time when Endgame happened, everything flowed and came through and finished perfectly. It was a perfect little thing. We're not going to get that again. I've embraced that. You've embraced that. The rest of the world has not. Where we're going to go down the road, I mean, based off of what we got coming up, I mean, She-Hulk's coming out now, which is basically Marvel's version, at least how it looks off that trailer, Ally McBeal, the Hulk kind of show, which we know that probably is going to lean more towards probably the DODC stuff, because you're going to need a lawyer who protects these kids, and that'll also probably connect to the X-Men in some way. Wakanda Forever, I don't know how that's going to connect anything. That might not connect anything. That might just be their own thing, because unless they find a way to connect them with the rest.
Yeah, Wakanda, I mean, we know it involves Atlantis and Namor, so you can introduce that.
Which could bring the gods in for Thor.
The big thing is they're talking about, who's going to be the new Black Panther, but in like the toy packaging promos and things that have leaked out so far, but there's no spoilers here. But it's all like it's largely like a picture of like the three main women and things like that. It's like, I kind of wonder if this is going to be. It's just going to be the people of Wakanda. It's like their story. I honestly don't know if they're going to make a new Black Panther. I don't think this is. I think there's a reason this is not called Black Panther 2. I think it's Wakanda Forever, because I don't think there's going to be a Black Panther.
They're also supposed to be doing a Wakanda show as well, which I'm not angry at that. If they want to do that, fine. That's totally cool. Yeah. Have Wakanda have their own show.
But the problem with this phase, and especially with a lot of the ones that haven't come out yet but are coming out, is everything feels like it's like, okay, we've used up all our main people, so here's like spin-offs. We're gonna have we don't have Iron Man anymore. We're gonna have Iron Heart. We don't have, we've done Hulk, now here's She-Hulk. We there's Thor, now there's the Mighty Thor. I almost call her Lady Thor. I don't want to get hit by her.
Don't call her Lady Thor.
We had Hawkeye, now here's young female Hawkeye. It's like, so everything is like, we had Captain Marvel, now here's Ms. Marvel. It's like everything just seems like it's almost like a knockoff of something else at this point.
Honestly, in terms of the original Avengers, I mean, they already said that Guardians of the Galaxy, that Volume 3, when that comes out next year, that'll be the last time we're going to see all of them together. Mm-hmm. So clearly, either some of them are going to die, or they're just going to go off and do their own thing.
Well, the Guardians of the Galaxy is like the Avengers. I think a lot of people, the kind of the core. It was a revolving door of characters. There was times when any one of Captain America, Iron Man, Thor were not in the Avengers, and tons of other characters. Wolverine spent time in the Avengers. All kinds of people. It was a revolving door, and Guardians of the Galaxy as well has had just tons of different people over the year. So I believe that James Gunn. I believe James Gunn when he says he's done with it. I believe Dave Bautista said he won't do it without James Gunn, so I think he'll be part of it. I think there's still a good chance you could see some of the other characters, though, still in a future Guardians movie or a future Marvel movie of some kind.
Or they might not even be Guardians anymore.
Yeah.
They just
I don't think it's the end of the Guardians. I think it's the end of this team as we know it, and and James Gunn directing them.
Exactly, just like the Avengers is over. Like, you can have the Avengers, you can have an Avengers type film, but it's not going to be the Avengers. They'll call themselves the Avengers, but there's
also been Avengers. There've been West Coast Avengers. There've been Dark Avengers.
Exactly. There's hundreds of different versions of the Avengers, just like X-Men. There's different versions of X-Men.
So many people over the years.
Exactly. Yeah. So the problem is that most people who aren't like the comic book nerds who know this shit, they're thinking there's only one Avengers. Is this Avengers? This is what it is. The problem is that with the MCU getting so popular and bringing all these non-comic book people into this fandom, they want everything straight and narrow. They want everything laid out perfectly fine, which is the same reason why Star Wars can't get off of the Skywalker saga. It's because everyone wants something that's got resemblance of something they've seen before, so that way it makes it easier for them to track and makes it make more sense to them. That's why they haven't gone back and done Knights of the Old Republic. That's why they haven't gone and just done separate stories to do whatever the fuck they want, because Star Wars is Star Wars. You can go off and do everything you want, but they stay on this one linear path because fans who aren't like the ones that read the novelizations and all that stuff, they can't accept that these stories have no connective tissue to this. Whereas that's the problem right now with a lot of people. It was with all these other shows, especially like with the Moon Knight. Miss Marvel does connect with Captain America or Captain Marvel at the end, but like Moon Knight and Eternals in a way, and also I'm blanking on one other show I'm thinking about for that. They have no connective tissue to anything in the MCU right now, so they do feel like they're their own separate thing because they don't connect to anybody. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can have these shows. There's all these people out in the world that have these powers. We're about to get introduced to that immensely with the X-Men, where there are clearly humans on the world who have a mutation that gives them powers to do other things. And you need to be okay with them not to all have to connect to Avengers and connect to XYZ. They are allowed to go off and do their own simple thing. And Loki was kind of trying to do that with alternate timelines. And then, of course, Multiverse was trying to do that. But it's one of those things where it's like, you can go any which way you want, but ultimately, I think it's almost a fear from Disney kind of maybe strong-arming Feige to go, hey, you need to narrow this thing into a lane. So we all have a follow-up plan that we know exactly where to go, because if we just say, oh, this is like What If. Everyone knows What If. What If is an animated show that's does its own thing. Hey, what if this happened? What if this happened? But then they went and pulled it in to Doctor Strange. It's like, no, What If was its own thing. It was doing its deal. Some people like it, some people didn't, but it was doing whatever the fuck it wanted to do. It kills everybody. Like
now, granted, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse, I think it was kind of tongue in cheek. It's like, well, here's something from What If, and here's something from the really shitty Inhumans show, and here's the Fantastic Four that people always wanted, and here's Xavier from the animated series. So I think that was like a one-off fun thing. I think we were worried when we first knew that Captain Britain was in there, and we heard that
Zombie Strange.
Yeah, Zombie Strange. That was the other thing I was thinking of. Those were like, oh man, are they seriously gonna make What If like canon now? And I think they didn't at all. I think that was more just like, here's this.
Now there's some rumors saying that X-Men 97 is gonna be canon to the MCU, and it's like, how? I mean, unless it's like an alternate timeline kind of thing with Xavier, because I mean, you do have that Xavier from Doctor Strange with the yellow. I
really don't think so. Even just because from what I understand, they're trying to make this very much like the old show, the old cartoon,
which I'm totally for.
And just the tone of it and everything, I don't think you can make that canon. So I hope that's a false rumor that you heard.
I hope it's a false rumor too. Let X-Men animated series just be its own thing.
That being said, it's one of the things I'm most excited about.
It is because I love that series so much. I think probably the one thing, based off of the current schedule for stuff that's coming out, I think the one thing that's going to have the biggest eyes on it, and the one thing that's going to have the most pressure on it, is going to be Secret Invasion. They've placed the Scruggs in this world. They've made them good, which is different from the comics. Plus, Nick Fury's been up in space with them for how fucking long now?
That's just it. We don't know.
We don't know. I mean, that to me is going to be, because Secret Invasion is going to be a show, right? That's a show, not a movie. I feel like that is going to be, as of right now, the most important, probably connected with Marvels as well, because it's Captain Marvel and she messes with the Scruggs and stuff. Those two things are going to be the most important things that are probably going to, maybe unveil what Phase 4 is going to be, or not. But that, to me, are the two most important shows / movies that everyone's going to basically put that added pressure on it, and it's going to be, this is going to be the thing that shows us where we're going to go. This is going to be the Age of Ultron type event that's going to maybe push what's going to happen now for the next 5 years.
This is just my theory now. I disagree with that. I think a Secret Invasion, I was at a comics by the time that happened, but I've heard about it, and it's apparently a major thing. It's one of those things where like all of a sudden like half the characters you knew, Captain America turned out to actually be a Skrull and all those kind of things, and the fact that they're doing this as this TV series, and I kind of feel like they've decided to make
a movie.
I kind of feel like they've decided to make this story its own self-contained thing largely. It's like it's going to have Nick Fury off dealing with this thing. There's some Secret Invasion and things going to happen, but I don't think it's going to have like major ripple effects into the rest of the MCU. That's just my opinion, just based on
Which if they do that, I mean, I'll watch it, and as long as it's good, I'll enjoy it. But we all know, in terms of the comic book fans, how important this storyline is to everything. And if they were to just make this kind of a nothing thing, what?
I also thought it was one of the lamest storylines. One of those things that, like, when you think too far into it, it's like it doesn't make sense. Like, why was like even just in Captain Marvel, we're like, well, wait a minute, if this person was a Skrull, he wouldn't act like this. He wouldn't have done that. And it's just like, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this character's been a Skrull this whole time. It's like, not really.
I mean, you also can throw that into Spider-Man No Way Home or Far From Home, where Fury and Maria Hill were Scruggs the entire time in that movie.
What are you calling them? Scruggs?
Scruggs, right?
Scrolls.
Wow.
I'm like, what's a Scrug?
It's a Skrull that's a scrub.
The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Skrulls. Honestly, I want more Skrulls because I love Ben Mendelsohn. So
for me, it looked like a guy in face makeup talking. It's like I don't know, it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, but I love Ben Mendelsohn as an actor, so anything we get more of him in, I'm all for. But like I said, do you think how can they bring Shang-Chi in to all this? Now, granted, they can connect him with Wong and Doctor Strange and stuff, but did that not kind of like? But then why wasn't he in Multiverse of Madness? Where was Shang-Chi and Katie in that? Because they did leave with Wong, and they also talked to, I think, didn't they also talk to at the end of Shang-Chi? They talked to Captain Marvel and they talked to Hulk, right, or Ruffalo?
It was Ruffalo, not as Hulk anymore, which they have to explain how that happened.
They had to explain how he becomes Ruffalo again and She-Hulk.
Yeah.
But like, so they are in there, but then not have, where do they go?
Again, we don't know the timeline of it, and I think that was, I almost
that's
think
the other thing too. Because Ruffalo is Ruffalo again.
Well, there's that.
Shang-Chi's is kind of just in this like holding pattern where he is in the placement.
Where it is in relation to Multiverse of Madness, things like that. Yeah. And because I think you'd easily pull him into whatever their next group crossover movie is, because Wong or whoever can be like, hey, we got this guy, he can come help us out, whatever. There's ways to pull him in. Having not knowing anything about the character, I don't think that he's played a major part in any of the storyline, so I think it'd just be kind of adding him into whatever they do.
I mean, they could, and there's nothing wrong with that by any means. And I mean, plus, like I said, we still have Spider-Man out there, but like I said, Spider-Man's probably going to be more self-contained now. Because he's got his own shit to deal with. He's got to basically be on his own and be poor and not have any of the Stark tech. Which could he easily go to fucking Happy and say, "Hey, it's me."
Well, that's just it. We have several projects we already still know exist for Phase 4.
Yeah,
and then we have so many things that we know are already scheduled to be coming up eventually. And there's things like Spider-Man, which is coming. It's just a matter of when. It's like there's still so much left that how far ahead you try and think would boggle your own mind.
Yeah, there's at least probably 10 to 20 projects that are out there.
Well, yeah, for Phase 4 right now, we got She-Hulk still coming, Wakanda Forever, Secret Invasion, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, The Marvels, and then somewhere in here we're getting a What If Season 2 and a Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which I'm very excited about.
And that's the other thing too, is that we also know Loki Season 2 is currently filming, but they don't have it as a placeholder date for anything.
And stuff with no dates. You have Loki Season 2, you have Agatha series, you have Blade, you have Spider-Man,
you have
another movie. There's an animated show. I think it's anime called Spider-Man Freshman Year. You have Echo. They've announced shows for Wonder Man and Nova and Daredevil and Agatha, and Marvel Zombies is apparently going to have a show.
Did you say Armor Wars? Because that's another one.
Armor Wars. Armor Wars is also Phase 3. Armor Wars and Ironheart are the ones that don't have any dates yet. But they're both filming or done filming, I think, already, though.
We got all this stuff right now that we.
And that's not even touched on X-Men or Deadpool 3.
Yeah, we left Fantastic Four and X-Men and Deadpool.
I honestly I think we're going to get a Deadpool 3 announcement at Comic-Con, honestly. And I think we're going to get some more information on Fantastic Four at Comic-Con. So by the time you guys are watching this, you might already know the answers to these things.
I think Comic-Con's going to unveil a lot, especially since they are coming back to Comic-Con. They're doing their Hall H thing.
I think they're going to do some major announcements here. Well, here's what I think. I think the things that we already know about, the Deadpool 3s, the Fantastic Four, I think we're going to get further announcements on that, like whether casts or titles or dates or whatever, directors.
We'll probably get our first trailer for Ant-Man and Wasp. Or at least a teaser.
Yeah, for the things we already know about. I think we're going to get that.
Wakanda Forever.
I think if there's going to be any more announcement on future projects that we don't know about yet, like, oh, here's the next, Avengers, Secret Wars, or whatever it's going to be. I think anything for future projects that we just didn't know about yet, I think that stuff will come at D23, which is like, September?
Yeah, they could hold a lot of that shit off.
But I think things we know about now, I think you'll hear some stuff this week.
So to kind of not I guess to put a button in on this.
Well, what is the one thing remaining in Phase 4 that you are most excited about, most looking forward to still?
I mean,
just out of curiosity.
I think Secret Invasion.
And what are you least interested in?
What's that?
And what are you least interested in as well?
I mean, least interested based off of the lineup of just what we know that's scheduled is probably She-Hulk, because the trailer didn't really do a whole lot for me.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of most excited, I mean, in terms of like my top excitedness, Guardians Volume 3, because I love the Guardians and I just want to see them. And I feel like we didn't get enough of them in Thor: Love and Thunder because we only got them for like 5 minutes. But I feel like in terms of importantness and what I'm really sold on trying to get excited for, because I feel like it is going to be important, is Secret Invasion and Marvels. But, Marvels, it's like, I just feel like I'm not necessarily excited to see Captain America and Miss Marvel and, Rambo from WandaVision. It's just, but I feel like that's an important film, or that's going to be an important film. Secret Invasion, I feel like it's going to be a very important show, but we haven't seen anything from it. Now they show a trailer and I could get like super through the roof about it, or I'd be like, whatever. So for me, in terms of like my excitement, it's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because we have that familiarity with them. We enjoy those characters. We love those characters. And I kind of want to see Adam Warlock. I want to see what they do with that.
I love Will Poulter, so I want to see him.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see what Will Poulter does with it.
So for me,
Forever, I'm kind of just like,
Wakanda Forever, I'm growing less and less interested the more I hear about it. It's like,
because it feels like they're not really doing much with M'Baku, and M'Baku was like my favorite character outside of like the two villains, and
especially if they do go with the whole there's no new Black Panther, which is fine, but it's just like it's a woman power Wakanda Forever. I'm like,
just make Okoye Black Panther, Okoye would perfect. Just make Okoye Black Panther.
Which one's Okoye?
That's Michonne from Walking Dead.
See, I don't like her.
I love her. I love Okoye.
I like her at all. I want to see Lupita Nyong'o.
Nakia.
Yeah.
I think you're Nakia or Nakia.
For me, I completely agree. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is easily the thing I'm most excited about. Yeah. And with number 2 being the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which is the takeoff.
I don't know what to feel about that. I have no idea how to feel about that. But it's Guardians, so I'm gonna be there.
It's James Gunn poking fun.
Oh yeah, I am Groot. Groot's supposed to get his own show too.
It's an animated
shorts. The little shorts.
The shorts, yeah. And then least favorite, I agree, She-Hulk. I'm just not excited at all about that. And for me, the Marvels, because like I said, Captain Marvel I think is bland, and Ms. Marvel was just a boring waste of my time, and so I'm least excited about that.
What breaks my heart about this, and I'm pulling it up because I don't want to say her name wrong, even I probably will. I love Tatiana Maslany because I loved Orphan Black. I thought that was a great show, and I love her as a performer and as an actress. So when I heard that she was going to be She-Hulk, I was like, fuck yes. I'm so excited for this. And then I saw the trailer and I was just like, I was like, I don't really care about this. Like I said, it looked like Ally McBeal. And then when they try to make it more kind of a dating sex thing at the end of it, I was like, like I get you got to that could be a very, very small
Yeah,
part.
it could just be a light moment in between other stuff.
Exactly.
But like is this movie
fine.
going to have stakes? Is the show going to have stakes, or is it going to be largely like, oh look, She-Hulk's a lawyer?
Like I said, I feel like most of it is going to be her embracing her Hulkness, and she will have a battle because we know that oh god, what's her name from The Good Place? She's going to play I'm blanking on the character or the villain in it, but there's clearly going to be a villain and a battle and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like the main stakes of that is her embracing the Hulk mutant lawyer thing, and she's going to be basically battling the DODC with the whole Miss Marvel incident at the end of the finale of Miss Marvel. But the campiness of it really doesn't work. Could that completely flip once we see it and I end up loving the show? Absolutely.
Oh yeah, there was Falcon Winter Soldier. The trailer had me sold, and I ended up being very disappointed by that show. Whereas something like I'm trying to think, like Moon Knight, I went into with no excitement at all. I mean, I'm like, I'll watch it, but I don't care about the character Moon Knight. I end up being probably one of my favorites of the series.
That's because Oscar Isaac is fucking amazing. So let me ask you this: we talked about the preparations for what's to come. What was your favorite? We'll split them up. What was your favorite movie and show? We both are in agreement that in terms of shows, Miss Marvel was our least favorite and Eternals was our least favorite movie. What was your favorite show and your favorite movie of Phase 4 so far?
Well, the favorite movie has to be Spider-Man No Way Home, because that was just epic. While, I didn't need as many nods to previous versions as we got. You know how I feel about the whole multiverse thing. Yeah. I just think it was extremely well made. I thought, it hit all the right beats, whether it be comedically, emotionally. The action was spectacular. I really enjoyed Spider-Man No Way Home a lot. As far as TV shows, I'm gonna give Hawkeye I'm gonna squeak out the win over Moon Knight, because Moon Knight's up there. I really did like that, but I think that they fumbled it a little bit towards the end. But Hawkeye, while it's definitely going for a different tone than the rest of the shows, I really enjoyed the story they told and what they did with it.
I'm in agreement with you on both. Spider-Man No Way Home easily is the best film of Phase 4 so far. It's got the heart, it's got the action, it's got everything that I wanted to have happen in this. Yes, are there some things and they're going, well, wait, why don't? But if you can just watch the movie as it is, I think Spider-Man No Way Home was near perfect in what it wanted to accomplish. And of course, our ultimate heartbreak moment of the year, it won its own award in the I'm Not Crying, You're Crying award with Andrew Garfield, who, once again, a performance that was underappreciated, undervalued when he had his own films, came roaring back with an amazing performance. Now that everyone wants Amazing Spider-Man back. And in terms of the TV shows, yeah, I love Hawkeye. I've always been a fan of Clint in the movies. I loved him in Age of Ultron. I thought he was great in that movie. So him getting his own show, I was all about. We got some more Linda Cardellini, which I fucking love her. And I love Haley Steinfeld. And I think she fell in perfectly into that show. I loved the relationship between her and Clint. Pizza Dog was a nice little thing. I love the whole LARPing angle. I thought that was funny. I remember when it first popped up, I was like, ugh. But you know what? It worked for me.
I think she reminds me of. I think she reminds me of Peter Parker, in the way that she's just like this. She's this teenager. She's kind of a fangirl to who to the real superheroes. But she definitely has the skills and the abilities to do her own thing.
And that was my problem with Miss Marvel, was that
Marvel didn't do it right.
You say Kate Bishop, you say Kate Bishop is Peter Parker, which is 100% true. Kate Bishop is female Peter Parker, but everyone's calling Miss Marvel female Spider-Man. It's like, no, she's basically Kate Bishop without the money and without the years of training, because she's quirky, she's adorable in moments, but she's basically doing everything that Haley Steinfeld's performance was as Kate Bishop. She's just younger. So it's like you have these three, which if they put Peter Parker, Kate Bishop, and Miss Marvel all on screen together, the cuteness overload is either going to be nauseating or it's going to be through the roof. But Hawkeye as a whole, because the reason why I loved Hawkeye as much as it is out of all the films and all the shows, Hawkeye is the only one that never had superpowers in the film. It was 100%. Everyone was mortals. Everyone was real. I mean, technically Kingpin, but even Kingpin's like just super strength, super powered, but he's not like a mutant or anything. He's just a big motherfucker. Plus, I love Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. I know you haven't really watched the Netflix series at all, so you don't want to appreciate that one as much as I do. But I loved the Christmas atmosphere of it. I love that there was like a timeline in it, like Clint's trying to get home to his family, but he has to do what he has to do because in his heart he's trying to. And I love that they brought Yelena in. But like I loved how there was all this still kind of like Black Widow needed to happen so that way you can introduce Elena, which I would love if they brought David Harbour back. So I thought
somebody just showed up in Hawkeye and be like, I'm Natasha's sister. You'd be like, really? Where's this person coming from?
Exactly. You wouldn't have had the emotional weight for it there. But because of Black Widow, because we got to see the establishment of Natasha with Yelena and the rest of the family, and we know where it goes, and where the end of it, we're like, hey, I'll see you later, and you know that they don't get to see each other again. And you get the trail off with the Countess showing her, hey, Clint's the one that killed Natasha. That when that moment does happen in Hawkeye, you have that inevitable thing. Everything worked so well, and those emotional beats worked so well. That's why those two films worked the best for me. And I can't wait to see those people back again. We may not get much more of Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, but I'm all for Haley Steinfeld and obviously Tom Holland coming back as Spider-Man whenever they do come back. So like I said, outside of Eternals and for me, Miss Marvel, which I said at the end, I think the finale, Miss Marvel, did save it a lot for me. But you're still like, no on Miss Marvel.
No, the finale did nothing for me at all. Honestly, it kind of hurt because I think that one of the worst things about Miss Marvel was her weird and dumb power set. She's like making these little crystal platforms and things and reaching out with this like elastic arm looking things. It's just I think she has dumb powers and they look dumb and I don't like her. So it's like when I did like her, it was when she was just herself.
Like I love her family. I love the family dynamic.
One thing I like most about the show was like with the random backstory of her family during the India and the partition. While I did
not give a shit about
while that had nothing to do, largely barely anything to do with the series and the story it's telling, so I understand why people didn't like that flashback. At least I cared about that story. I kind of enjoyed those characters, and like if it was its own thing, I would have enjoyed that.
I did not. I remember I sent you a text. Like I was watching. I was like, 25 minutes of this. I don't fucking care. And you're like, I actually do care. I'm like, what?
I think I cared more about that just because I cared so little about the regular story. I'm like, oh, something different.
See, I like Bruno and her friend that ran for the Senate thing. I thought they were great. I enjoyed the finale quite a bit, but it was everything in the middle that I just really didn't give a shit about. But I mean, like I said, and Thor, Thor's going off and doing his own thing, which we're totally fine with. And Doctor Strange, that left that shit open ended with is it Clea or Cleo? Cleo.
Oh, wait, Cleo. Now we have.
Yeah, it's one or the other. I mean, there's so much that we still don't know yet. But like I said, we're 3 years if we don't count COVID into this, and yeah, we don't know what's going on. But I'm okay with not knowing what's going on. I just like to. It's weird because it's like I want to know what's going on, but I don't need it to all follow the same lane. I care about these characters so much. We both care about these characters so much that we just want to maybe see an outline, but we don't need them to all lead up down to the same road of like an Endgame or an Infinity War. And I think that's the one thing that I think everyone needs to start embracing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like, and I think you're in agreement with me on this. What?
Well, the other thing is I 100% trust and faith in Kevin Feige.
Oh, he has never
10 years planned at a time, if not more. So he already knows where this is going. But the problem is that your audience is still doing. Give us a clue.
I think the main thing that probably has hurt him was that I think he had everything thought out, planned out before X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Deadpool showed up, and now he's kind of having to reset and rethink this stuff because I think he already had these phases planned out without them, And then, but now everyone's like, "Where's the X-Men? Where's Fantastic Four?"
He said
like,
when they got the rights, he said it's not going to be for 5 years. So I think he had at that point those next 5 years planned out. So I think he does have a plan for them at this point. But it doesn't start until, I mean, the earliest X-Men is not even cast, nothing. So we're 2 years away from.
To our knowledge, they haven't been cast yet.
Well, we're probably 2 years away from an X-Men movie. It's not coming out next year for sure. Maybe not in the following year. So I think that as they finish up everything they have scheduled for Phase 4, I think that in his next phase, I think he has a plan for them.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like I said, we care about these characters so much that I don't even care if we have an Endgame level event where we need to bring them all together. Just let them all do their own things, do their own worlds, do their own storylines, and have their big moments, their big events on their own. You don't need to force everybody together to all line up. You can do some of them. Don't do all of them. Mm-hmm. Which, granted, that's going to happen is if you have a big Avengers event, everyone's going to go, where's these 5 other people that we've seen? Why weren't they brought in? It's like, because they probably don't fucking know who these people are, kind of thing. But it's a lot of this shit, is going to be up in the air until we see where the X-Men come in and where Fantastic Four and all them come in. But what I don't want it to do is I don't want the MCU to lose its identity, which right now I feel like they have their hands in so many things that, not that it's losing its identity, but I feel like it's
overexpanded.
Exactly.
The problem is
saturated.
They add more characters. They add more characters. They add more characters. They have to be willing to close off characters. They have to be willing to say, this character's done, so we can move on to other things. But if they keep adding on, you have so many people, so many things. It's like there's so much stuff going on, and so many people you have to follow and keep their stories going. And it's like you can just do a story of somebody and leave it, and then maybe down the road that character can pop up in something again. But we don't need to know the ongoing story of every single character and then have just too much stuff out there confusing everything.
Because eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have an Avengers type of...
You look at that picture behind you of characters, and it's like...
Yeah, it's like, exactly. And these are all MCU... These are all Phase 4. This is all Phase 4 people.
Yeah.
This is not the whole MCU. This is just Phase 4 people behind me. And it's enormous. It looks like the final battle in Endgame. At which you're going... Oh, wait, 4th one in the back row. There's Moon Knight. Cool. Moon Knight's in this. No, they probably just CGI and Oscar Isaac into it just so that people could shut the fuck up about where the hell Moon Knight is. And that's what I don't want to have happen. Is I don't want to have this big epic event and then you're going 4th row, 12 over. There's Miss Marvel, there's Moon Knight.
Or they try and put everybody in this thing, and so everybody only gets there's 10 seconds of screen time.
Or they're just in the crowd. Yeah. I don't want that. I want it to make sense. I want it to flow with
that's part of the problem is then they're pushing these shows for Echo that nobody asked for Nova that nobody asked for Wonder Man that nobody asked for. It's like, I get that
but in that same thing, no one asked for Guardians of the Galaxy.
I agree, but at this point it's but we've seen Echo. But nobody asked for a spin-off show of her. Nobody cared about her.
Was it Dark Avengers supposed to have Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp?
That's it. I don't need to know any more Ghost story.
Taskmaster from Black Widow is also going to be in it. It's
as far as I'm concerned, all those characters are done. They could just never talk about them. Not that I didn't like them in their movies. They were fine in their movies, but they don't need to.
U.S. Agent. He's supposed to be a part of that too. And it's I really enjoyed Wyatt Russell's performance in that movie, but that doesn't mean I need to see him anymore. I feel like his character is kind of done. But if they show up, they show up. But I also don't need to have a show with a bunch of characters that were they were there and they really didn't do a whole lot in the movie that they were in. So let's give them more time. It's you can say the same thing that's Wanda and Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Hawkeye and them all had their own shows. But the problem is that they had charisma. You wanted those characters. You enjoyed those characters. I don't know anyone that enjoyed Ghost or Taskmaster or Countess or any of those characters. They're just they were in the movie. They were probably the weaker parts of the film because they weren't that great in the film. They were there like the Taskmaster and Black Widow.
Fine for their role in that show or movie, but I don't need to know.
You didn't know who Taskmaster was, and it was just this maskless person who could kick ass. That was great. And then as soon as they introduced who Taskmaster was, I was just I really don't give a shit. Same thing with Ghost. Ghost fighting Ant-Man and the Wasp was a very cool fight sequences. And I was oh, that's a good villain. And then they were no, it's this actual girl who's hurting and all this kind of stuff. I'm I don't give a shit about that. Like, I don't. And then now you're gonna try to focus a show or something around those characters. Like, I don't care. Like, it don't work for me. But they could turn it around because MCU and like I said, Feige, that we trust and stuff. They could take a character that no one gives a shit about and flip it. And or he could make another Boner situation in WandaVision where you're like, oh my god, Quicksilver, and it's like, no, my name's Ralph Boner.
Well, again, that was something that I think it was more to do with people's expectations, because it's like they thought, oh, it'll be a fun little wink at the audience, but they're like, but no, the audience has to read into everything. It means something. It means something. And they're like, no, it didn't. It's just.
I mean, but it was an ultimate troll job bringing in Evan Peters to play Quicksilver. That was like these people are gonna go fucking nuts, and it's not gonna be for shit. Like, that was a troll job by Feige, and I commend him for it. But he didn't have to call him Ralph Boner. Like, that was just like really, bro.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, Marvel Phase 4, I think it's getting wrongfully chewed out for people who just are like, I need resolution now. I need to know the game plan now. And just enjoy the ride. Minus the Eternals. You can leave them on the side of the road and don't give them any bus money. Just hope to God that you're never heard from again. They got sent to the moon and were never heard from again. Anyone who understands that reference, good for you. Yeah, I mean, any lasting thoughts you want to talk about Phase 4 before we call this?
No, I think we covered everything as far as I'm concerned.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys did, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Like I said, a lot of this could change by the time Comic-Con hits. That's this weekend, right?
It starts like tomorrow. So
yeah, it starts
tomorrow.
Watch
this going wrong.
Exactly. When we air this, you're gonna be like, Comic-Con. Like, we shot this before Comic-Con. People, give us a break. So a lot of our conversations right now could totally be null and void by the time Comic-Con comes out. But I'm sorry, YouTube won't let me edit this fast enough. So it is what it is. But coming up next for us, Nope comes out this weekend, so we'll have a review for that. So does The Gray Man, which Brian already got to see Gray Man. So Brian, real quick, 2 thumbs up for Gray Man. I'll have my review for Gray Man once it actually comes out on Netflix. I'll see that then. Also, next week we will be back for franchise flashback of the Alien Predator verse, coming out right before Prey on Hulu comes out on August 5th, as well as Bullet Train and I think Bodies. But I also don't know if I'm going to have Bodies available where I'm at. So I might watch that at some point. Also, I'm going to be dropping a review roundup of reviews for the Sea Beast RRR that Brian made me watch, and also Emergency. So that review will be up here very, very shortly, or to be out by the time this video gets put up online. And then next week, is there any movie? Oh yeah, DC League of Super Pets comes out next week. Is there anything else that comes out next week?
Not that jumps to mind, no.
No, okay. Anyway, we have plenty of videos coming down here, and as well as our whole slate of shows in August that we will unveil once we lock those shows in. But we are the Movie Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug. That is Brian Michaels. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.